Deep beneath the desert sand of Saqqara, Egypt, there are 24 black granite boxes. Each one weighs between 70 and 100 tons. Each one has been polished to a mirror finish, so precise that modern laser measurement finds virtually zero deviation across its entire surface. They were cut from solid granite, one of the hardest stones on Earth, with right-angle corners so perfect that no instrument available to ancient Egyptians should have achieved them. They are enormous, they are empty, and nobody can explain who made them, how they were moved underground, or what they were actually for. Tonight, we open the boxes. Let us begin with a simple physical fact that the official tour guides at Saqqara do not dwell on. The Serapeum, a tunnel complex carved into the bedrock beneath the Egyptian desert, approximately 30 kilometers south of Cairo, contains 24 granite sarcophagi. The word sarcophagus means stone coffin. That is the official designation. But when you look at the dimensions, the weight, and the engineering precision of these objects, the word coffin becomes increasingly difficult to sustain. Each box weighs between 70 and 100 tons. The lids alone weigh approximately 30 tons each. They are cut from Aswan granite, one of the hardest naturally occurring stone types on the planet, and their interior surfaces have been finished to a flatness measurable in thousandths of an inch. Engineers who have visited the site with laser measuring equipment have confirmed the interior walls of these boxes are as flat as the surface of a precision machine tool. The 90-degree corners at the base of each interior are exact to a tolerance that modern CNC stone-cutting equipment would struggle to match. These boxes are in an underground tunnel. The tunnel entrance is narrow. Getting a 100-ton granite box into a narrow underground corridor with no cranes, no diesel equipment, and no mechanical advantage beyond ropes and human labor is not a logistics problem. It is an impossibility. And yet the boxes are there. They did not assemble themselves. Someone put them there. And the question of how and why is one that official Egyptology has not answered to the satisfaction of any engineer who has looked closely at the site. Let us spend a moment with the engineering, because this is where the Serapeum boxes become genuinely extraordinary and genuinely difficult for the official narrative to accommodate. Christopher Dunn, a manufacturing engineer with decades of experience in aerospace and precision machining, visited the Serapeum in the 1990s and took detailed measurements of the interior surfaces of the granite boxes. What he found was this. The surfaces were flat to within a few 10,000ths of an inch. The corners were square to the same tolerance. The lid-to-box fit was so precise that the two surfaces, when brought together, formed an airtight seal. Dunn's professional assessment, stated in engineering terms, not archaeological speculation, was that these tolerances are consistent with precision machine manufacture and inconsistent with hand tool working of any known ancient type. Granite is not a forgiving material. It does not yield to chisels the way limestone does. Cutting granite to a flat surface requires abrasive grinding across the entire face, a process that, to achieve the tolerances observed in the Serapeum boxes, would require either an enormous amount of labor with perfect technique over a very long period, or a powered abrasive tool operating at speeds and pressures not achievable with muscle power. The implications are straightforward. Whoever made these boxes had access to a cutting and finishing process that we do not currently credit ancient Egypt with possessing. Whether that process was mechanical, sonic, or something else entirely, the physical evidence of what it produced is sitting in a tunnel in the Egyptian desert, available for anyone with a straight edge and a measuring instrument to verify for themselves. Here is the fact that should trouble anyone who accepts the official explanation for the Serapeum without question. The boxes are empty. The official explanation for the Serapeum is that it was a burial complex for the sacred Apis bulls, a series of bulls that were worshipped in ancient Egypt as living manifestations of the god Ptah, and which were, upon their deaths, mummified and interred with great ceremony. The Serapeum, on this account, is a very large bull cemetery. There are problems with this explanation. The first is scale. A mummified bull, even a large one, does not require a granite box weighing 100 tons. The engineering investment is wildly disproportionate to the stated purpose. If you wanted to inter a mummified animal with reverence and permanence, a chamber cut into the bedrock would do. 100-ton precision-machined granite box is something else entirely. The second problem is the lids. The lids of the Serapeum boxes are designed to create an airtight seal when closed. An airtight seal around a mummified body serves no obvious preservation purpose. Mummification already handles preservation, and the sealed granite would simply trap whatever gases the decomposition process produced. An airtight seal makes sense if you are trying to maintain a specific internal atmosphere or a specific internal pressure. And the third problem is the most basic. Almost no mummified remains have been found inside the boxes. A few fragments. No complete mummies. No grave goods of the type that accompany every other Egyptian burial. The boxes that were supposed to be the most elaborate tombs in the ancient world contain, in most cases, absolutely nothing. The Serapeum is the most intensively studied example of anomalously large stone box construction, but it is far from the only one. On the Plain of Jars in Laos, a plateau in the mountains of Xiengkwang province, there are approximately 2,000 stone jars scattered across the landscape. They range in height from 1 to 3 meters and in weight from a few hundred kilograms to several tons. They are cut from sandstone, granite, and limestone, materials quarried from locations that are sometimes many kilometers from where the jars currently sit. The official explanation is that they were funerary urns, containers for the dead, during a Bronze Age culture that flourished in the region between 500 BC and 500 AD. But the largest of the Plain of Jars jars are significantly bigger than any human body would require for burial. Their interiors are not fitted with any drainage or preservation system that would be expected in a funerary context. And local traditions, recorded by French archaeologists in the colonial period, consistently described the jars as having been made by a race of giants who used them as drinking vessels during a celebration that lasted for months. In northern Europe, the megalithic dolmens, stone table structures consisting of massive upright slabs capped by a horizontal roofing stone, have been formally classified as burial chambers since the 19th century. Their capstones weigh between 5 and 100 tons. Their internal dimensions, in the largest examples in Germany, Denmark, and Ireland, are consistent with a burial chamber for a being of 3 to 4 meters in height. As with the Serapeum, most dolmens were found empty or with only fragmentary remains. The pattern is global. The boxes are too big for us. The question is who they were sized for.
There is an alternative to the burial interpretation that several independent researchers, including engineers with relevant professional backgrounds, have proposed for the Serapeum boxes specifically. It deserves serious consideration because it accounts for features of the boxes that the burial interpretation cannot. Granite contains quartz, a mineral with well-documented piezoelectric properties. When quartz-bearing stone is compressed or subjected to mechanical stress, it generates an electrical charge. This is the same property that makes quartz the basis of precision timekeeping in modern electronics, and the basis of the pressure sensors in almost every industrial measuring instrument in the world. A hollow granite box of the dimensions found in the Serapeum, sealed, airtight, with interior surfaces polished to mirror flatness, would function, in acoustic terms, as a resonance chamber. Sound introduced into the box at specific frequencies would be reflected and amplified by the polished stone walls, creating standing wave patterns of considerable intensity. The quartz crystals throughout the granite would respond to the mechanical pressure of these acoustic waves by generating electrical fields. What you have, in other words, is a granite box that converts sound into electricity.
A transducer, an energy conversion device built from stone. Acoustic researchers who have conducted tests inside the Serapeum tunnel have recorded infrasound, low-frequency sound below the threshold of human hearing, emanating from the boxes themselves. This infrasound is in the frequency range documented in modern neuroscience research as having measurable effects on human consciousness and physiological state. The boxes may have been machines. They may have been used for healing, for altered states, or for purposes we have not yet categorized. What they almost certainly were not designed for, the physical evidence makes this increasingly clear, is the storage of mummified bulls. How do you cut a 100-ton granite box with interior corners square to a fraction of a millimeter in a civilization officially limited to copper tools, abrasive sand, and wooden mallets? The short answer is, you probably do not. Not with those tools. And the physical evidence from the Serapeum, and from Egyptian granite working sites more broadly, suggests that something other than copper chisels and sand abrasive was being used. Egyptologist and engineer Dunn identified 3 categories of anomalous cutting marks at ancient Egyptian sites. The first is circular saw marks, curved striations in granite surfaces that are consistent with a large diameter rotary cutting blade operating at significant speed. The second is core drilling evidence, cylindrical holes bored through hard stone, in which the tool appears to have penetrated the granite at rates significantly faster than modern diamond-tipped core drills achieve. The removed cores from these holes show spiral striations indicating tool rotation, and the pitch of the spiral, the distance the tool advanced per rotation, is, in some documented examples, greater than what diamond drilling achieves today. The third is the finish quality itself. The mirror-flat surfaces of the Serapeum boxes could, in principle, be achieved by extended manual lapping, rubbing the surface repeatedly with progressively finer abrasives. But the consistency of the finish across large surfaces and the maintenance of flat geometry across those surfaces while working by hand would require a level of process control that is extremely difficult to achieve without reference surfaces and measuring instruments of equivalent precision. The tools that made these boxes have not been found. The cutting marks they left behind are in the stone. And those marks tell a story about capability that the official timeline of ancient Egyptian technology does not currently accommodate. Now we move into territory that is harder to verify, but which appears in enough independent sources from enough different periods and locations to be worth examining with an open mind. There is a category of reported discovery, primarily from military and intelligence sources, primarily leaked through unofficial channels, that describes the finding of sealed underground chambers in various parts of the world containing giant humanoid figures that are not mummified, not skeletal, but preserved in a state that some accounts describe as suspended animation. These accounts cluster around two geographic areas. The first is the Middle East, Iraq and Afghanistan specifically, where several alleged eyewitness accounts from military personnel deployed in the 2000s describe the discovery of cave systems containing beings of enormous size in what is described as a glass-like enclosure or transparent container. The accounts are unverifiable. They are second and third hand in most cases. They describe immediate military lockdown of the sites and the removal of the occupants by specialized teams. The second cluster involves the American Southwest, consistent, interestingly, with the geographic area of the 1909 Arizona Gazette Grand Canyon report we discussed in our previous episode. We present these reports not as established fact, but as a pattern worth noting. The Serapeum boxes are sealed airtight. The lids are engineered to maintain an internal environment separated from the outside atmosphere. If these were life support chambers rather than tombs, if the airtight seal was not to keep the outside out, but to keep a specific internal environment in, then the scattered reports of living giants in sealed underground enclosures are not quite as easy to dismiss as they might initially appear. The boxes were built to last. Whatever they were built to contain, they were built to contain it for a very long time. In the Aswan granite quarries in southern Egypt, the source of the stone used for the Serapeum boxes, the obelisks, and the giant colossi that stand at temple entrances throughout Egypt, there is an unfinished obelisk. It is the largest known obelisk ever attempted, approximately 42 meters long, weighing an estimated 1,200 tons. It was abandoned in place, still partially attached to the bedrock after a crack appeared in the stone during the cutting process. The unfinished obelisk is valuable because it shows the cutting process in progress, and what it shows is deeply strange. The channels cut around the obelisk to free it from the surrounding rock are approximately 35 centimeters wide enough for a person to kneel in, but not to swing a hammer effectively. The workers cutting this channel would have had to work in an extremely confined space with minimal mechanical advantage. And yet, the channel walls are smooth and regular, suggesting a consistent, controlled cutting process, rather than the irregular chipping that manual percussion tools produce. Also notable is what is absent: debris. A granite cutting operation of this scale, using abrasive methods, should produce enormous quantities of dust and stone chips. The quantities found in and around the Aswan quarries are not consistent with the volume of stone removed. Something was cutting granite here very efficiently, leaving clean channels and very little waste material. The work stopped suddenly. A crack appeared and the project was abandoned. The workers, whoever and whatever they were, did not tidy up. They simply left. And the unfinished obelisk has been lying in the quarry ever since, waiting for someone to ask the right questions about the tools that started to cut it. Visit the Egyptian Museum in Cairo. Walk through the antiquities halls. Look at the objects on display, the sarcophagi, the statues, the canopic jars, the funerary texts. Read the labels. The labels will tell you what the objects are. They will tell you their approximate dates, their find spots, and their religious or cultural significance in the context of ancient Egyptian belief. What the labels will almost never tell you is how the objects were made. The engineering process, the mechanics of cutting, shaping, polishing and transporting objects of this scale and this precision, is simply not addressed. This is not an accident of limited label space. It is a consistent pattern across every major museum with significant Egyptian collections. The British Museum, the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, the Louvre. The Egyptological departments of these institutions are staffed by scholars of extraordinary knowledge and rigor. They know the manufacturing questions exist. They simply do not address them in public-facing contexts. In academic literature, the manufacturing of Egyptian granite objects is occasionally discussed, and the discussions are consistently unsatisfying, acknowledging the difficulty of the problem while defaulting to explanations that the physical evidence does not fully support. The gap between what these objects required to be made and what we officially credit ancient Egypt with being capable of is not a small gap. It is a chasm. And the fact that the chasm is consistently not discussed in the places where these objects are displayed, the places designed to educate the public about the ancient world, is itself a kind of evidence. Evidence that someone, at some level of institutional decision-making, has decided that this particular question is better left unasked. We have reached the end of this investigation, and we want to close it not with certainty, because certainty is not what the evidence warrants, but with a clear statement of what the evidence does support. The Serapeum boxes at Saqqara were manufactured to tolerances that exceed the documented capabilities of ancient Egyptian toolmaking. They were moved into an underground space without any visible means of doing so at their scale and weight. They are designed to seal airtight. They are empty of the contents their official designation requires them to contain. And they produce measurable acoustic effects, infrasound, when the ambient conditions of the tunnel are right. These facts are not interpretations. They are measurements. They are the results of engineering analysis conducted by professionals with relevant credentials. They do not require you to believe in giants, or in suppressed technology, or in any particular theory of ancient history. They simply require you to look at what is physically there and ask whether the official explanation accounts for it. It does not. Not completely. Not even close. Across this series, we have examined pyramids, star forts, world's fairs, buried windows, government buildings, and now stone boxes. In each case, the physical evidence points toward a level of capability. In engineering, in energy, in astronomical knowledge, in construction, that the official timeline of human history does not accommodate. The truth is carved in stone. It has been sitting in a tunnel in Egypt for thousands of years, waiting for the right question. The question is not who built these boxes. The question is what they were built to contain, and whether, somewhere beneath the desert, some of those contents are still there.